welcome to Who Cares, a podcast about caring and for those who care and those who are in the industry. This is my first ever episode, and I've got my a good friend of mine, Mike Martelle, that's going to be here talking to me about his what he does, his job, and how it affects his life. And we go from there. Firstly, how you doing, Mikey?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Dan. I'm glad you're doing this podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's as someone that's been in caring, or family care for a long time, and my situation changed recently because my mother died and stuff. But I still have my brother that I care for. It kind of came to me like I spent the last 6 years solely caring and not having much outside of that. And I thought to myself, but this must happen to a load of people that have to give up jobs, give up their lives, go into caring, and then at the end of it, where are they? What do they do? Who are they? Because I found myself like now looking like, who am I again? If that makes sense, because I don't know who I am, and I still haven't figured it out. And it's been like 6 months. But no. So this is kind of like where this has come from, and this is where I want to this to go. But I want to go into your experiences. Like, how did you get into caring?
Well, generally it is a vocation. I think it's something you want to do or you don't want to do, and that's changed a lot over the years. So when I left school, that's what I wanted to do. So I went and studied, and then I joined the B&A. I don't even know if they still exist these days, which is an agency. And then they sent me to look after people in their own homes. I worked in a department of psychiatry. I worked in an eating disorder ward. I worked with and then I worked in children's services. And then children's services asked me, they paid off B&A to take me on. And I worked for them for many, many years, most of my 20s. And I had an absolute burnout in that job. And I just thought I'd never work in care again. And then about 10 years ago, a friend of mine came to me with a job offer for working with adults with learning disabilities. So I joined that, and it's been the best thing I ever did, because what I took from that was all the mistakes I made in my previous job and made sure I didn't do that in this job. So it's been a wonderful experience. So I needed to learn from the first time to do the second time right.
You kind of needed to have your burnout and then come back with a completely different perspective. And plus, you were older as well, I guess. It's
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, trying to be a 20-year-old and do all the things a 20-year-old wants to do and work long shifts, these hours, weekends, it never works very well.
Oh no, 100%. I was when my brother and my mother got diagnosed within a month of each other when I was 17 years old. 19 years old. My brother and me there's 17 years between us. He got diagnosed with autism at 2, and my mother got diagnosed with cancer at the same time. And I remember I gave up a load of everything I was doing to move back home. I was living away with a girlfriend and that. And then at that age, to be dive into looking after people, it makes you grow up very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes you grow up and not equipped for it mentally at all. Mentally not equipped for dealing with those situations. So I it's on one of these podcasts I want to get on a very young carer. I would like to get somebody like that's a child carer that cares for a parent and have their view on it, because I could imagine that it'll be I don't know how old they're going to be, but I'm sure a 13-year-old will seem like a 24-year-old. It kind of that mentality of it. So when you were working, when you were working in the, I think the eating disorder wards, that must be very challenging.
It's shocking. I mean, the good part of my job is you see things you don't even know about. things that you didn't even think existed, and what I think what you find really shocking is it affects every part of life, every person, people you wouldn't think. It really opened your eyes to everything. And
Mm.
that's something that I saw at a young age, that how no matter where you come from, what you do, where you are, things really affect people terribly. And
Okay.
also a lot of it was respite care, and I think you brought this up as well. So a lot of families like yours need support and help, and it must be really hard without those services out there to give you a break.
Mm. Thankfully I have my brother, and he has one day a week goes to respite care, and at the beginning, I think this is the perception of it is that you're giving up or for a family, or you're admitting that you can't handle something, or you're admitting guilt. It feels amazingly guilty to do.
Yeah,
But after a while, not just to help out for me, for the help out for him, for my brother Ramon, he got a brand new social circle, something
yeah,
outside of it that he didn't have before. He has friends out that I don't need to be a part of. He has a small part of his life that I have nothing to do with, and that for him is huge. It means that he can. It says to me that he can handle being himself. God forbid that I'm not around, or now that his mother's not around, or stuff like that. He will be able to handle it. So that
yeah.
kind of like has eased my mind on a lot of things. But at the beginning, you do feel very guilty, I find.
A huge, a huge part of my job is building trust with parents and carers, because I can't imagine what it's like to have to do that. And of course, I totally understand it's so hard to do. And obviously, you never see on the news the good stuff. You never see, you only hear the worst, most terrible stuff. And then you're hearing that constantly, and you think, am I doing the right thing? So one of the most important parts of my job is building that trust with parents.
Yeah, 100%, that's why I want to start this. That's why I want to build this. I don't know if this is going to be big. I don't know if it's going to be small, but I do want to think like get the voices of people, because God bless. I love the people that are in care, and they need more attention. But I do think the industry needs a lot more attention, because I think there are a lot of people in it that aren't in it for vocational. They are in it for to be paid, and that's fine. There are people in it because they can't find something else,
Yeah.
which is a shame. I'm not saying they don't do a good job, but I do. But I had some carers here that weren't doing their best, and they weren't doing things. And like you said, it's not because it has to be vocational. You have to like doing it, otherwise it's not. It is just a painful job, and that's where it goes. I've never been paid for it per se, but like, and I couldn't imagine doing it for somebody that isn't a family member.
Yeah, yeah.
I would find that maybe because I've been through it, but having to do it as a job, because a lot of people have said to me, oh, you should go into caring, you should do that because of the experience that I have, and I don't think I could bear it. I don't think I don't think I could. I don't think I could bear it with it in the sense as a 24-hour thing. Maybe because I come home to it as well, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but yeah, as a permanent 12-hour thing, as something I have to do, and having that major responsibility
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I don't think a lot of people realize that it is.
yeah, yeah.
Because even though you get to do great things, like you said, you've just been to Blackpool.
Yeah, yeah. Travel, done loads of wonderful things, amazing stuff. I get to travel around, do lots of stuff. But I mean, that's the thing is, unfortunately, this job. So my partner would tell you this. I mean, what you think my job is going to the cinema, going on trip, having a wonderful. I mean, and what you're trying to do is give people the same experiences we all have.
Yeah,
In a safe way of doing it, and trying to get them to do as much as possible,
yeah,
and live their life best.
yeah. But
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 it's not quite as easy as all of that.
no, of course. But this is kind of like what I mean is like you are like you're there for the good days, but What you're really there is for the bad days. That's
Yes.
where I don't want to say it this way, but that's where you make your money. That's why you're being paid.
Yeah.
That's why you're being paid. You're paid for when the shit hits the fan, or you may get attacked. I'm sure you have done, and you may get you may have to make some difficult decisions. That quite frankly they need to be right.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I think this is the. Remember, I told you about what I had to learn very, very quickly. When you say about that, is when I worked in care before, I needed more boundaries because of that reason. Unfortunately, you're there to support people and help them, and unfortunately, if you don't have your own personal boundaries and you don't do things like that, terrible things can happen. And unfortunately, you've set yourself up for that if you're not boundaried in your work.
It's inevitable to get attached. I am sure, because you can't be cold either. It's such a fine line. I'm sure it is. It's such a fine line with those sort of things. It's like my brother and his carer are so close. Like they're very, very close, and they love each other, and that's great. They've known each other for a long, long time now. But where and that doesn't worry me. But there was a day when my mum, again, getting to a bit longer story. There was a day where my mother, at the time, she just come out of a coma. She had a brain injury, and she wasn't well, and she caused a big furor ruckus in my house that didn't need to be, and the care was there, and then she had to make the decision to report that.
Yeah.
Now, nothing major came of it. It was just a thing, but at that moment must have been I empathize with her so much for that decision, because being so close to us, being so another, but then at the same time having to do her job.
That's absolutely it, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. It must have been terrible for the carer to do that.
Oh yeah,
but obviously,
awful.
The thing you hold on to is, if I don't do that, what about if something happens? You know, you're never. It's never about people. It's about your worry that if something else happened and you never reported that, you never did the right thing, trying to keep. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? It must be awful.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Oh yeah, well, this is when in children's services, I am people I like, people I thought were my friends. I was constantly reporting, I was constantly bringing up, and then you're working in the same environment with these people because you want. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. But what ultimately you keep on coming back to is the care of the person.
Yeah,
That's all you've got to take. You've got to take out friendships. You've got to take out worries, and all you've got to concern on is this person receiving the best care they can.
But are you the kind of... Sorry, say that again.
And it's heavy to hold that.
Oh
because
yeah,
you are working day in, day out. But obviously all you're trying to do is just look after that person. And you have to keep, I mean, for myself, something I've always thought to myself is if I was doing something wrong, I'd want someone to challenge my practice or help me to do it better, because there is no perfect person at this job. The only way you can learn is for people to say, to pick it up, to challenge, to reflect on it, and then try and do your job better.
But it is the right thing to do. Take you to one side and say, listen, this has happened, I'm not happy with it? Or do you go straight to reporting or going over your head? This is kind of...
I mean, it depends on the situation. It does depend on the situation. It really does.
Because at most jobs, let's say working hotel, restaurant, whatever, I see you doing something wrong, you check out early, I don't know, you didn't forget to clean up something or whatever. I, as a colleague, would say, listen, mate, would you mind doing this for me? Rather than going straight to my manager and saying, oh, this has happened, this guy, like, because you still have a relationship with this person. Whereas obviously that doesn't have a person's well-being involved.
Yeah.
It's very different, but also it's work politics.
Yeah.
So where's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
line is kind of like where I'm asking it.
It's a hard one. I think what you're trying to be, if you care for anybody, is their voice in this,
Yeah.
if they can't voice it themselves. And I think as long as what you're doing is voicing for them what they want, I think if you are worried and there is a grey area, unfortunately, as awful as it sounds, the best thing to do is take that through. I mean, it would be called safeguarding or the manager. It may seem overkill, but obviously you've got to try and be the voice of the person if they haven't got a voice themselves, an advocate for them, advocate for them, what they need and what they want. So if you do have a worry, I guess, I mean, that's what I would do. It would always be that, but it is a horrible situation because
Oh, yeah.
it's an awful situation to be going through. But I guess as long as you can say you're being that person's voice and helping them to express what they may need, then you can't be wrong.
Mm. When you were working as agency, I have to come back to when you
Yeah.
were working as agency working there. Would you see random people? Would you have people assigned? Would you be up one person one day, one person another day?
Agency work is it's exhausting. It's
Yeah.
absolutely exhausting. It really is. I take my hat off to anybody who does it now. It is just literally you get off, you sent here to do this job, sent here to do that job. And obviously the people if you're working on a psychiatric ward, you come in on the day, the people there haven't got time to train you to do everything you need. You're there for 2 days. So they show you the fire exits, do all this, but they need to find you work that's going to help them, but without taking you off their own jobs. So
Yeah.
you are their numbers, and it can be very I mean, I'm really lucky. I work for a company now that doesn't have agency work, and the difference is incredible. I
Oh,
also know how services run on agency work.
well, this is kind of my worry about it. Is that because I hear these horror stories, and a lot of times it isn't because of the agency work. It's because instead of coming to a decision and problem solving, what you're doing is throwing bodies at it, and
Yeah.
throwing bodies at a situation most of the time doesn't work unless it is like unless it is what you need is people just to shift people to somewhere else. But but what you need is people there and then, and more, and I suppose this is where it comes to like care homes and things like that. Is a lot of them are run on agencies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
I feel I'm so lucky. The place I work now, we never do. Staff never leave. I mean, and that says a lot about the company I work for now. But working for the agency was very, very different. I mean, it was really, yeah. I mean, this was years ago, and I hope there's been some improvements. But I'd walk through the door, and I mean, yeah, you're right. It was just a body thrown at work.
yeah, it just doesn't seem ideal. Within like the industry in itself, what do you think the major flaws are?
Oh, where do I begin?
This is the thing. I mean, I know there's loads, and they're like, but give me your, let's say, top three.
Well, I guess also we've already brought up a few things. It's so hard. So it is really important. I don't know if I mean there are families that can look after people, but it's also great for families to have a break as well and not I hope you don't mind me saying this. I have seen a lot of experiences of people with children with problems, the other children being pushed aside, and of course that child becoming the focus. And I see that a lot. I work with people like that now who've been through that experience, who've had to put themselves to the side, become carers. And also, and then you said it as well, it is so great for people to find their own feet and to be promoted, to have the person sent to be promoted to be the best they can be out of the family environment, to really get their own voice and stuff. So that's amazing. But so the problem with that is obviously getting the trust of people. This is your son or your child going into this service, and of course the problems is you never hear any of the good stories. You never hear, nobody's Panorama aren't reporting on these amazing care homes that are doing the best, and I get that. I understand why. So obviously you've got that huge problem.
So bad publicity, you would say.
Bad publicity.
Bad publicity.
And I can imagine if I was somebody who cared for somebody and then was handing them over to somebody else to look after, hearing all of that, I would be full of worry, full of anxiety. So I can honestly, I can imagine that. Funding, I mean, funding is awful, isn't it? Funding is, I mean, funding doesn't work on what's best for somebody. Funding works on, I mean, awful as it sounds, and just what's the worst thing that can happen? If the worst thing happens, throw more money. The worst thing happens, throw more money. And it's putting the money in to begin with to help people, you know, to get the best out of them. The reason I dislike child services was exactly that, is you'd be throwing loads of money at them and then they go into adult services and it'd be completely different. And I think that jump from child services to adult services was very bad.
I mean, it's still not the best. There is it is like from one day to another. Thankfully, they've carried on my brother's care, and thankfully because my mum passed away and she passed away, they've kind of given me a length of rope to kind of like deal with that. But the transition was that it was from one day to another. But here's a new care worker that or social worker. Here's another social worker that will not be anywhere near as involved as the other one. I haven't heard from her in over 6 months, when the other one would call us every 3 months or so. And then also trying to change every circumstance you have with our carers now that we have. So we went from having a charity involved to now no charity involved, and us paying them via a completely different method, and changing everything from one day to another just because he went from 17 to 18 or 18 to 19. Whereas really, like, he's the same person and he needs the same needs.
Absolutely.
And having that kind of like, okay, I understand there has to be a change. There has to be changes at some point, but for him, that's very. Those changes are very significant. For that person is very significant. So and like I said, funding. For example, like pre-pandemic, there was I think so. There was Carousel. There was something called Sing and Dance. They'd go to they'd go for a night out to a karaoke night. There were these other little support groups that were around before the pandemic, and had never been able to get off their feet again because nobody has any money. And just recently, another one, Extra Time. Extra Time has closed down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Extra Time's gone. Now it's been taken up by a different service, but all the people that were there aren't there anymore. So it's a completely different staff. All the transport that was provided is gone, so that's gone as well. So it's another service that's completely changed, and I can't get him to, which he enjoyed every week. So, and I get everything needs to be funded, and I get everything, all this thing, but we do go to a point where it's like, what are we meant to do? Am I meant to start up something myself, or how? Like sometimes I don't want to be involved in everything. Sometimes I just want him to go do his thing and then come back.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't want me involved in everything. It's that way it was. But but like definitely funding but for different reasons, like you said, massive issue, and obviously it's gonna be a massive issue. Someone I'd love to get a someone that works for a council or that's in those funding departments and knows all about that, to get them on here to ask them questions. That'd be great. Something else I want to do. I'd love to get somebody on from maybe Citizens Advice that understands the benefit system, because how complicated that is for people. How complicated that is for people that struggle with anything. Even if you have anxiety, that the amount of paperwork's overwhelming. The amount of if you are behind in educational wise, it's extremely complicated and difficult for something that shouldn't be that difficult. Is one of the things. I'm sure you've had to go through loads of that paperwork on people's behalf and things like that. Because sorry, go ahead.
No, well, absolutely. It's quite frightening. I was thinking about so after the pandemic, things did grind to a halt. I mean, hopefully they're starting up now again. Some of the other bits, like some of the clubs and bits and bobs, are starting again. But obviously, it's so hard to get into it and find out about it. And there doesn't seem to be that much information out there. I mean, I'm lucky in my job, so obviously we have that flowing. But I can't imagine people who are caring for people at home have that kind of information available. And it must be an easy to access it all.
Yeah, that's could be a good idea. Maybe that's something that I can do that I would look forward to doing, maybe because I will build a website with this podcast, and I want to put information out there and have profiles to things and links, all this kind of stuff, to get that kind of stuff out there for carers, because I want this to be for carers, not for the carees per se, but like for carers and people that are at home that don't know what to do with their kids or their special needs adults or whatever, and they can go out and do things with their peers. Because I find outside of college and school and a couple of other things that he does, he doesn't get to spend time with anyone his age.
Which is really important.
Of course, 100%. 100% is important. He doesn't really get to spend that time with anybody but his age. Well, a lot of times he doesn't want to, because he's a lazy, he's a lazy son a lot of the times. He's always like this. Well, he's going to be 20, but he's still a teenager. Like, I
didn't want to do it when I was 20 either, so I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do get it.
He just wants pizza and YouTube. That's what he wants, which is great. Yeah. So going back, so you went bad publicity, funding. What else shows?
I mean, this is why I do the job I do now. I mean, the company I work for are so forward thinking in their approach. I don't know if it's all like that across the board, and I think it's really easy to put people in a box and not kind of find out what they really want to do or what all the things they're going through. It's funny, isn't it? Because you forget all the worries we're going through, all our anxieties, all our concerns about who we are, what we want from this world. It's like they're forgotten in that. I mean, my company, I'm so proud of them. They're so different to that. They're forward thinking and all of that, and do lots of work around relationships, sexuality, gender, all of these kind of things. But I don't know if every service is doing that. And that's not a knock on other services. I don't know if they even have the time to do these things,
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Yeah.
I mean, we live in this world now where, people are living in the community, accessing the community, and they want to learn. The social media, they see everything, so they need to learn and they want to know more things. It must be like looking over there at a world they want to explore and know more about, but they need some support to access that.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I was helped. Well, there's other things that I'm glad that they don't have to worry about. I'm glad that my brother doesn't have to worry about the inflation and the economic crisis and that kind of stuff. No, he doesn't care about he doesn't know about the war in Ukraine or the Gaza Strip, and him not having those worries is ignorance is bliss in a way as well. Ignorance is bliss in a way as well for that kind of stuff. Which is.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
how did he find lockdown?
He didn't mind lockdown. The problem is now.
Yeah.
The problem is getting him outside of the house now. He got so accustomed to being indoors. So now, whenever I say let's go out and do this, is no. He just wants to stay at home. Or like if we want to, like getting him over to see, because I'm trying to get him over to see family in Spain. So my sister lives in Spain with my little nephew and stuff like that. And the anxiety he has about going to Spain is through the roof. And that it's just such a shame because he used to love going out, going flying, going here, there, everywhere. And also now that his mum's passed away, it is different as well. He does. I think it's become a big thing. Like he's afraid because he came out the other day, and bearing in mind my brother's quite non-verbal, he said to me, "No move, no move house in 2024." I was like, "Where did you get the idea that we're moving house?"
Yeah.
And so he did. So we'd never, and we're not moving house or anything like that. He just got in his mind that now that maybe she's not away or this thing that we're going to move. And I was like, "No, we're staying home. We're staying here." And then he's happy with that and that. But yeah, after the pandemic, what I found is that it's getting him. He's still in that mindset of staying in safe.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we all went through it, didn't we? I can't imagine what it must be like for your brother, because imagine how we dealt with that and how it must have felt, and then see it through his eyes. And I mean, the horrible truth is lockdown was good for some people. They really enjoyed it. It's all. I mean, I hated it, but and it reinforced lots of things for people, things we never thought we'd live through in this lifetime. And I see a huge effect on people.
Yeah,
especially.
I found the first two I was fine. The third one hit me hard. I don't know why. I don't know why it was. It was because we got locked down at that Christmas time, and it was my sister was meant to come over for Christmas with the family, and my mother had only met my nephew at this point once before, and he was already 3. And because of the pandemic, he just weren't able. They were meant to come over twice, and twice it got cancelled because of lockdowns. And everything was hyped up. I'd bought loads of food, and on the 23rd of December, we get locked down again, and they're not able to come. And the whole roller coaster of emotions that caused kind of just got me to say, fuck this in so many ways. Like, and so I just had, and that became because I genuinely didn't think my mother was going to live long enough to see my little nephew, her grandson. And thankfully she did. Thankfully she lasted another 2 years nearly, and got to see him loads of times. They came over quite a lot after that. So but it was that feeling, and the whole it just wasn't nice, and it became quite depressing. Like before the other 2 lockdowns, we were going to the gym when we were allowed to. We were doing some exercise. We were sorting out the house, kind of thing. But then the third one, just I don't know, just it just felt like that. Enough's enough, in a way. And plus, I also I got let go from my other job as well. Got made redundant from that, which was a blessing in disguise in the end.
I'm glad to hear that. Good.
It was a blessing in disguise. The first few weeks, I was annoyed at it, but then 2 weeks down the road, I was like, I'm glad I never had to go back to that shithole again. And and it was I'll say it's Southern Railway. So I don't care. It's a terrible place. It's a terrible place to work for. So we talked about the bad. What are the positive parts of your job? What do you find the most rewarding?
I mean, honestly, it makes me speechless. I mean, until you do my job, you don't realise the joy when you actually can support somebody to realise a dream. So a lot of work I would do would be about setting goals for people, and obviously trying to do things people want to do that nobody thinks they can do, and seeing them achieve those dreams is, I mean, it's magical. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's a long, long journey, and it can be complicated and messy along the way. But there is no job. I can't think of a job where you get to do that. I mean, there is no feeling like it than to get somebody who has a wish, and how can we make it possible? You know, it might not always be the first wish, but it's a step, it's somewhere near it. And to be able to help somebody achieve that and reach that goal is pretty amazing.
What do you have any? Do you have any examples?
Oh, just loads of things. Traveling, going places, traveling around the world, going to, you know, things you wouldn't. I mean, so my experience working in care before was all no, limit. We can't do that. We can't do this. This person can't try that. Whereas the company I work for now, like, right, well, how can we achieve that? How can we do that? What can we do that's the closest to it?
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, just things you wouldn't even believe. I mean, things that are crazy as well, like doing a bloody army obstacle course that nearly killed me, trying to follow somebody around. That nearly killed me, but I did it for someone. Traveling halfway around the world, I did that for someone. That nearly killed me as well. But the reward is beyond anything. But it doesn't even have to be that. I mean, guys achieving qualifications in music, so many things, you know. And obviously, the good thing for me is seeing people who come through the service who may at the beginning not able to, you know, gone on to going into a relationship, a loving, caring relationship, move out onto their, you know, things like that. That you know, when I worked in care before and I was so disheartened, you know, that never would have been possible. And to see how different it is, you know,
It's a massive difference being able to say yes, isn't it?
yes,
Like, because
absolutely,
I remember my brother growing up, and I remember being very always negative. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. And then one day, I was talking to one of his early developers, and they say don't say no to him all the time. Don't say no to him all the time. Let him be, and just say yes. And that kind of made me realize, yes, if you can't be negative to them all the time. If they want to, occasionally you're going to have to let them play with the flower and make a fucking mess.
yeah,
Okay, just let them do that, and then occasionally it's also like see, like immersive treatment. You have to be in their world for a little while.
yeah,
So what I found is being like, if they want to roll on the floor and chant or dance, whatever, get on the floor, roll with them, and chant, dance, whatever. You'll make a bigger connection doing that a lot of the times than you will do with anything.
absolutely.
You make a bigger connection with them once they see you doing the same thing as them. They recognize you more. They recognize and I do think there's a big power in that. Whereas like, because it inconveniences us, we say no. Like,
yes, absolutely.
They're
not the problem. The world we live in is the problem.
exactly. You know, if they like I said, the specifically the flower thing is because my brother used to grab flour from the kitchen and pour flour on the table, and then get his little trains, and he'd pretend it was snow, and if they were going through them, make an absolute fucking mess. It was everywhere. But occasionally you have to let them do those things, because that's what at the time when they want, and that's what makes them happy. They don't understand why they can't do it. And I think
that up afterwards, though.
I did help him. Like, we're just going to do this into the bin, and then he was okay with it. It took a while for him to understand what throwing away stuff was and things like that, because he used to be a little bit of a hoarder. Now he likes to get rid of things, which is good. So like, what's been your most challenging day? What's been your the most challenging circumstance you think you've had in your, how many years you've been doing it now?
Well, let's try and think. So I went to college went to college at 18, 19, 20, 27, 8, 9. So nearly 15 years altogether.
So within your 15 years of experience, any moment that pops out of you being extremely challenging?
When I worked in children's services many years ago, we had somebody go AWOL. And I don't think anybody can quite understand that experience. They were found, everything was safe, but it was probably the worst experience of my life. because obviously the whole point of the job is to care for someone. And yeah, it was one of the most heart-wrenching days of my life.
Was
Absolutely.
this a person that was in care throughout no fault of their own, or did they have challenges, or was it a person that
basically respite care services? So it was a child that came to us for the weekend. They didn't want to be there. I mean, the truth is they made their decision, and but you obviously, it was awful. It was awful for the whole team who was involved. I mean, I wasn't even personally involved. I wasn't with them when they did it, but you obviously feel terrible. I mean, trying to call the police, trying to involve, trying to explain the importance of this person going, oh, it's just, yeah, absolutely. Nobody prepares you for those days. Nobody prepares you for those days.
The amount of I worked at when I worked on the railway, we were close to near to a children's home place, and the amount of runaways they had every weekend, these kids 13, 14, 15, most of them trying to get back to their families, kind of thing. And sadly the family's not being in a state to take care of them. But knowing that, kind of like, and sometimes they'd end up at the station and we'd have to talk to them, and understanding the trying to say, not obviously none of our place, but hearing the other carers trying to say, listen, your family isn't prepared to look after you, right? To look after you, your family they've been deemed to not be suitable, so you need to stay with these strangers. It's such a hard thing to.
Oh, it's hideous, absolutely hideous. And then also, I think
at that
also
age,
with the go on.
At that age, like, you have strangers telling you that your parents aren't good enough. They're not good enough, but your parents aren't suitable right now for you, and it must be so conflicting with everything else that they've learned in their life of being told that we love you, we love you, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, also the point of it was this person didn't want to be there. And I know this sounds awful to say. I hope this doesn't sound wrong to say, but they're not in prison. It took me a very long time to realise that. I mean, the only way I would have kept this person safe is locking them in, and that's never something I would want to be part of. So you've got that double edge, haven't you? You want to keep people safe, and I mean, on that horror of that moment, but you also you don't want to lock people up. They're not in prison. They've done nothing wrong. They shouldn't be locked in. So, it's that, isn't it? It's that. But yeah, I'll never forget that 24 hours in all my life.
No. Sounds awful. And if there's something that you could that you would drastically change within the industry, what would it be? If you tomorrow were if there was a Ministry of Carers or Ministry of Caring, what would you drastically change? Would it be something like wages? Would it be carers needing to be more qualified? Would it be care homes need to be vetted better? I don't know. What would you think needs to be looked at?
Well, what I'd like is where the system's going, I'd like it to speed up, and it needs to speed up a lot quicker. That's the truth. What we still have is quite large groups of houses with mixed people in it, lots of different needs. And what I really like is this kind of move into the community in smaller groups. Imagine if I was to tell you're about to live in a house with 20 different people now, all, and I mean, if I did it, I would vie for attention constantly. You just create that environment, because you've got a handful of staff, loads of you needing different things. So it would just happen to any of us. It doesn't matter if you've got a learning disability or not. And I think where the government, where social services heading is smaller pockets of people in the community. And I just want this sort of system to speed up now. So people aren't, it's very easy to leave people as they are because it's okay, but they're not okay, and they need to speed that up. Smaller homes, more caring, more specific care, so people can do things.
So
and that kind of stuff. Just speed up now. They're going in the right direction. Everybody's going in the right direction.
I'm
They just
glad.
need
I'm glad you think that everything's going in the right direction, though. I'm glad. I was expecting like a massive overhaul of stuff. But
I don't have home care. I don't. I mean, I know lots of people who do home caring who, yeah, I don't know if they're getting the support. I genuinely don't. What I've seen a lot, and I hope you don't mind, your experience is what I see a lot. And I don't know if this, but what I mean is basically the brothers and sisters are carers. The mums, you're all carers, and I see that a lot, but I don't know what support you're getting. I really don't. I get to walk out of that job.
Yeah.
You don't.
The support that I get this is also kind of like why I want to create this is they offer you coffee mornings and that kind of stuff. Now I'm a 37-year-old, or let's say when I started as well, I was a 20-something-year-old man, or when I first started, I was a 19-year-old boy. Last thing I want to do is go and eat cakes with a load of 40-year-old women and drink teas and listen to sob stories. No offense to them.
No.
That's the last thing I want to do. So with all due respect to that kind of stuff, and that's fine. What I get now is the respite with Ramon, and that's me. But there is no outlets, let's say. So like, if I wanted to go talk to somebody, there is nobody.
Yeah.
Kind of way. I'd have to source out on my own or whatever. Whereas which is kind of what I wanted to do with this. Depending on how if it gets big or successful or whatever it is to maybe even have those communities. Or let's say instead of doing a coffee morning, well, let's do something more individualized for some people. We go to a we'll do a night or an evening where we go for a dinner, or we do a day where we go paintballing, and then so we do an activity, and then afterwards we can sit down, everyone can talk, they support people. Here's your number if you never need anything, and you can create those relationships like that. That's something like that, because the only thing that is there is those things. Obviously you get carers cards, and I get emails every other day saying, oh, there's a carers meeting, coffee meeting, and I couldn't think of anything worse. Because a lot of times what I want, I don't know if you, especially, I know you work in it, but like when you work in it, you can go out and do something else. And this is where comedy comes into it for me. For those, we haven't even mentioned it yet, but for those of you that are watching this, me and Mike know each other because we've done a comedy course together, and we now are both stand-up comedians, and we get out, and it's given me a new lease on life. It's got me to I get to meet people like yourself. I get to meet people from all over the place, and from people that I would never have spoken to before, completely different strains of life, and that's been great. But if you want to come from there, and there's loads of people that were in my situation where all I used to do was I went to work, cared, didn't see anybody else. I had a relationship that was very toxic, very bad at the time as well.
Yeah.
And I needed to get out of that, which thankfully I did. But that's all I did. I didn't see anybody, and occasionally I'd go down to the pub and see an old friend and have a few drinks, and never mention how everything was. They asked me how life was. Life was great. Life wasn't great.
Oh,
life wasn't great.
That's so sad to hear.
No, it was what it was, and to this day, like right now, I'm not great. I thought I was doing well, and then I've realized I'm not. For things, not for any reason of mine. It's grieving my mum that I haven't really done yet, because I can't bring myself to do it.
All you probably had to do is become the parent so quick.
Well, I was already kind of the parent. Like that's different. I'm taking care of him by myself now for a long time. That's not the issue. It's she was great, man. You know, it's that kind of thing where you just need to realize and move on from it. And I'm not ready to move on.
No, which is I totally understand.
Yeah, I'm not ready to move on, and I'm just taking it out of myself. Like I've been overeating and doing these things, which not looking after myself very much. Which for a little while I was, and then I just kind of stopped. I don't know what triggered it, but it did. So now, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get this getting this going, because this is going to help me. There's talking to people, things like that, and this is going to help me. This is completely selfish.
Selfish only a little bit, my friend.
So yeah, so at the time, at that time, especially when that's all I was doing, and where it comes from, like I said, comedy. What I want a lot of the times is I need somebody. If I reach out to somebody about it, a lot of times I don't want people to talk to me about it. I want you to take me away from it. I want you to if I say, okay, let's go out for a beer, let's talk about everything but that. And and then if I need to bring it up, I'll bring it up. But for now, I just need to be myself, to be me, not to be Dan, the person that looks after Ramon, or Dan that was looking after my mother, or that kind of thing. I would just want to be, and that's where comedy was a massive thing, and is a massive thing, and that's why I've kept it up, because it just brings, it's something that's mine, that's for me, that I do. Oh no, thank you very much. I don't like to mention my
you scratch every comedian just below the surface. We're all like this. There's something going on with all of us. Right?
Oh yeah. There's some, we all have some sort of fucking issue. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. And so yeah, good point. I was like, how do you distance yourself or unwind from?
Right. Well, you asked me earlier about there is a bad part of care. There is a really.
Here we go.
I mean, this isn't. I mean, I can't speak for carers in general. It is one of the problem with it is many hours. I mean, I can't tell you how many people message me. They look at things and go, "Wow, your job's amazing," and I'm the first person to hit them with what you don't realise is you're working 60-hour weeks. It's not, you can't walk out at the end of the day. You can't, I mean, it's not a job where, I'll do that tomorrow, because that's not how the job works. At 5 o'clock, if it's not done, you're still staying. If somebody doesn't come in, you can't go home. It's a really hard, there's a trick that they always try to teach you about putting a seat outside your work, put your problems on it when you go in, put your problems off when you go out. And that's a wonderful idea, but to try and do that,
that's you have to be kind of like inhumane to be able to do that a little bit.
It's called care because we care. And we said it earlier, and I think people who are most successful really care, but they do pay a price for that, and that obviously is that kind of thing. I mean, I hope, please God, I hope this doesn't go wrong. But basically, you see that person who's at the bar who's just down 3 drinks the moment they arrive and they want to go home, they're pissed out their head. That's the nurses and the carers.
Oh yeah,
because you're just exhausted.
100%.
You're drained. You just basically all you want to do after work is go sit in a room with no lights, no senses, no nothing, because it's been total overload. And I mean, nurses and care assistants, all of these sort of people, that's what they're doing constantly. It's long hours. It is. Please don't get me wrong. It's worth every hour, and it's worth it. But it's not. That's the price you pay. And I mean, I'm constantly exhausted. I used to be able to pull it off when I was a bit younger, but I honestly, 3 drinks in, I'm like, I'll go home now. Trying to manage my comedy around it is so hard, and you're just trying to measure that. And you do need constant escapism. You trying to switch the two off is really hard. Even my partner picks me up when I've got my work voice on. So, so don't talk, because you're just in that mindset so much. And it is, I mean, lots of people are great. I mean, I suppose the good thing for people who do my job to do is learn ways to manage that and switch it off. Really successful people I work with can switch it off. They can, there's a word, part of my, I can't say it, but they can do work as one thing, outside as another. But and I also find behind most really good carers there's a partner going, for God's sake, when come up, switch off, so we all do pay our price, but it's worth
No,
it. It's
yeah, the over hours and the amount of responsibilities you have to have for relatively what I consider little pay. A lot you get is outstanding. Is incredible. You mentioned something there.
The company I work for now are brilliant, but I mean, I'm talking about when I used to do children's services. I mean, I mean, you just wait for the phone to ring for somebody to call in sick. It was that bad. It's constant. When I used to work for them, honestly, I'd be looking at the clock thinking, 2 hours, no phone call. Oh, there it goes. Oh, I'm sick, and you can't go home. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You mentioned about that because I have it's a quite funny story. Is my brother had his prom back in June or July, or prom or debs, whatever they call it nowadays. And so he graduated his college and he's into his life skills college. And I thought it was hilarious. It was on one part, on one hand, again going back to the letting them be kids, letting them do their things, saying yes to them. It was lovely to see all the kids running around causing chaos or jumping around dancing. Nobody's telling them not to do something. Nobody's there saying no, don't do this or do this. You want to eat cake, put your fucking hand in the cake. You want to have that, you want to eat. Don't get me wrong, they're all very well behaved actually for a bunch of kids with autism. But also was quite disturbing is how much the teachers were drinking.
Really? Oh God!
They're like, oh no, we don't have to deal with these fuckers for a little while. Let's get this.
Doesn't surprise me.
No, but it was great. Don't get me wrong, because they were in a place where they were because of, I don't know, licensing or something like that. It was in a golf course bar or something like that, and you weren't allowed to bring alcohol. You weren't allowed to buy alcohol. You were allowed to bring alcohol.
Okay.
But I was driving anyway, so I ordered a couple of Cokes and that, and they were talking to a couple of the just casually talking to a couple of the teachers. Oh, you got Coke? Do you want some whiskey in that? I was like, no. I talked to another teacher. And so I talked to another teacher. Wine? I've got wine. Do you want some wine? I said, no, guys, listen, I'm driving. Fucking.
Very good.
It was quite a lot of fun. And yeah, like I said, it was brilliant to see them just dancing around, being themselves and stuff like that. That was great. Do you know what? I think what we're going to do is, Mikey, I think we're going to leave it there, man. And
been a pleasure, Dan.
It has been great. And later on, after I've done a few more of these, I'd love to get you back on and talk some more, get more of your opinions, and if you think of other things that you want to say during the meantime. I'm talking about, let's say, like 6 months' time, and then we go from there.
Okay, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's
Love
been
you, man.
Love you too, buddy. Talk to you soon.